I now see it is 10 o'clock. 10
All
o'clock
right.
on my computer. Um, my name is Patrick Priest. I'm the co-chair of the Management Labor Advisory Committee, and it is our March 5th meeting in 2026. I'm pleased to welcome everyone here. And as we do with each meeting, I'm going to read our affirmation. We'd like to thank everyone for their time, effort, and participation in our work before us today. We want to recognize that it is very difficult and important work, and we appreciate and value the perspectives and professionalism that everyone brings here today. Thank you all for being here. And with that, I will turn it over to our administrator, Terry Watson, to do a roll call.
Thank you, Co-Chair. Sarah Merritt.
Good morning, I'm present.
Good morning. Sarah Duckwall.
Good morning.
Good morning. Co-Chair Strickland.
Present by video.
Good morning. Ryan Hearn.
Present.
Good morning. Margaret Woodall.
Good morning.
Good morning. And Stacy Llewellyn is not with us today. Emily Cronin.
Present by video.
Good morning. Co-Chair Priest is with us.
Present.
Kim Schlesinger.
Present.
Director O'Day.
Not present.
Not present. Okay, all right, well, we have a quorum.
Thank you very much. So that's great news. We don't have a ton of actions, but we'll be there just in case. All right, we'll move into our next item on the agenda, which is public comment. We do have two that have been signed up to give public comment, but there will be time for others. The first up is Dr. Vern Sabo.
Yes, Dr. Vern Sable, representing the Oregon Chiropractic Association. For the public record, MLAC's webpage states in part, quote, committed to a common set of values, with the first two values listed being balance and fairness. The Oregon Chiropractic Association, and me personally, we're hoping and praying that you, the Management Labor Advisory Committee, would in fact provide that balance and fairness in regards to our proposal last session that would allow chiropractic physicians to serve as attending physicians for the life of an injured worker's claim. Regrettably, you chose to appoint two nurse practitioners to serve as co-chairs of an interim subcommittee on access to care. Considering SAFE's 2025 House Bill 3374, which died, but would have allowed nurse practitioners to serve as attending physicians for MLAC to then appoint two nurse practitioners as co-chairs constituted a clear conflict of interest. I chose not to voice your concerns, hoping and praying still for that balance and fairness. And though the subcommittee of two, meaning the two co-chairs of both the nurse practitioners, allowed input from stakeholders, there was never any discussion. There was never any debate regarding facts, data, or scientific medical evidence as to why providing chiropractic physicians, PAs, or nurse practitioners attending physician status, would that be in the best interest or not of injured workers? For balance and fairness, the planned interim summit and task force meetings on access to care must include a robust discussion and debate regarding facts, data, quality medical evidence relative to, is it in the best interest of injured workers for a chiropractic physician to serve as the attending physician, yes or no, and why? Thank you.
Thank you for your comment, Dr. Sable. I do see a hand raised, and it is from the co-chair, Emily Cronin, of that committee.
Yeah, just for public record, I want to make it very clear that I am in fact not a nurse practitioner and do not actually have that certification. I am an RN, but I am never, and I'm not planning to be a licensed independent practitioner. Just want to get that on the record. Thanks.
Thank you for clarifying that. All right. The other item of public comment that we have scheduled is not identified to a person. It is a representative of the Oregon Trial Lawyers Association. So I will be looking forward to find out who is going to make that public comment.
Keith and I were supposed to be making it together. He's not here yet.
Okay.
Are there other public comments we could skip through?
just you. Co-chair, Giovanna Patrick is in the room. Her and Keith were supposed to be making that comment together. Oh, nope, that's not Keith.
Could we go?
Can we come back to it? Public comment?
I'm okay with that.
Okay,
And I guess we can find out if there is other public comment that has not been scheduled that anyone listening would like to make.
no one in the room, co-chair. Besides Giovanna, sorry.
Right, well, then I'm flipping through the gallery. I don't see anybody. I'm delaying as much as I can, Giovanna. So I think we're gonna have to wait. So
Okay.
and that's just fine. All right, so
Okay,
we will
I think
move.
he's a little lost.
He might have tried to go to 260.
I would just, there was anything there, I can go upstairs and say.
I also went to the wrong floor, so.
I'll go,
Yeah, that room is
Locked.
yeah, oh, locked in.
No,
There's nothing in it.
Yeah.
Thank you, Teresa.
Yeah, thank you, Teresa. I have there's a hand raised. Scott, did you have a public comment? You get to talk in.
There you go.
No, I was just gonna say, I don't know the proper Robert's Rules process on this, but I would be happy to table their proposed public comment until they arrive, if folks are open to that, and then we could just kind of circle back once they're available.
Sure, we have a light agenda today, so I think it's fine. Thank you for just helping us move forward. All right, I will officially move to the next item on the agenda then, which is reviewing minutes from the February 5th, 2026 meeting. I did hear just before the meeting that there were some maybe comments or questions or just a request for more time to review them. I just throw that out there, and if we don't have a motion, then we won't act on them. All right, Scott.
Yeah, I think we had a couple questions about one of the pieces, so if we could push that to next time, that'd be much appreciated.
That's just fine with me. Does anybody have any disagreement with that, or shall we just move forward without making any motion or second or act on anything? All right. Margaret, I saw you mouth something, but you're on mute.
I just said that's fine. I was just mouthing it, didn't have anything really to add.
Okay, good. All right. All right, with that, we'll move forward. And I don't see anybody entering the room for the public comment. It's small now.
Co-chair, he did make it into.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Lost and then now this new security, like I went up to the third floor and then I rushed down to the second and then I had to take the elevator and then come back up again.
I'm sorry.
It's been so long, I'm rusty.
That's right.
It's like
It's a
world's
new
fastest.
location. I haven't been there yet. Mhm. All right. So with that, are you ready, Mr. Simple, to make your
Sure.
public comment with Miss Patrick?
Sure. Good morning, Chair Priest, Co-Chair Strickland, members of the committee. Keith Semple with Oregon Trial Lawyers Association.
Giovanna Patrick with Oregon Trial Lawyers Association. Good morning, everyone.
We wanted to come up today and talk about the proposed pre-authorization rules that kind of stemmed from our subcommittee meetings on access to medical treatment. We got the proposed rules and we've made some comments on it, but it occurred to us that the committee and the larger committee and the members of the subcommittee may not have seen what came out of those discussions and kind of what the product looked like. We have a lot of concerns about the drafted rules as proposed. We really don't think that they go far enough to address the crisis that spurned all of the subcommittee meetings over the summer. Two things came out of those meetings that I can recall. The one was the pre-authorization process because providers were not able to get timely responses from insurers, and that was preventing good medical outcomes, but also very frustrating that they can't practice medicine in they have to see their patient, the worker, month after month, not having answers to the questions that are on the table, just kind of being in limbo. That was one of the major reasons providers didn't want to maybe participate. Another was just all of the additional administrative work. We agreed to have a discussion about the compensation that maybe should be involved to reflect that additional burden. The conversation about the compensation was set over. We didn't address that. There was a rulemaking that was on the table, actually, on the medical services that was up for rulemaking. So we were able to kind of get the discussion about pre-authorization into that conversation, but we had to set the larger discussion of physician compensation over for another session. So the idea that was proposed, or at least as I understand, that came out of the subcommittee's recommendations, was to have a pre-authorization process that's patterned on the current elective surgery rules. We've, for a very long time, had a process for surgeons to request authorization for what are called elective surgeries, maybe don't feel as elective to the worker, but we have a process for that. It gives a 7-day turnaround time. And if the insurer doesn't follow the process, then they lose the right to contest whether the service was reasonable and necessary. So there's a quick turnaround time, an option to respond and say approved, denied, or we want to get a second opinion, and then the process moves forward. One of the important things is having a deadline for response and having a process for the worker to proceed with adjudication, request for adjudication under a de facto denial type process. Another big component is having a process where receipt can somehow be proven or confirmed, because that is what triggers the deadline to respond. And all too often the response has been, well, we didn't get it. We didn't get that phone call. That's the current process, is making phone calls and maybe not getting a response. The other common response is we just didn't get a request. And the doctor says, well, I sent it. Here's what I have. So the idea was to kind of provide a streamlined process for having a deadline, having a response, and then moving forward. We are concerned that the rule as proposed, and we submitted materials that has the proposed rule and the rule that it was intended to be patterned off of, the elective surgery rule. And then we provided some requested revisions that we proposed during the process. One of the big things, maybe one of the biggest things we're concerned about, is that this process is relatively narrow. It only applies to attending physicians. They're the only ones who can make use of this process. And it only applies to a limited types of service. They're enumerated in this, as opposed to saying it can apply to any provider or any service. We're very concerned that that's really kind of a half-step response to the crisis. I mean, I understand not making immediate changes, but if we're talking about a crisis, this really should apply to all the providers who are currently leaving the system. That this should be broad. We've requested this rule for maybe 10 years now in repeated medical services rulemaking sessions. And each time it's been expanded to maybe diagnostic imaging or maybe to physical therapy. There's no reason not to have this be inclusive. Why would we want to make this narrow and only apply to certain providers? For example, Dr. Bowman, who spoke and expressed frustration with this, he's probably not the attending physician. He's a consulting specialist. And if he wanted a service, sorry, Dr. Bowman, you can't use this. You're not the attending physician. I just don't know. I don't know why we would do that. Another thing that really concerns us is the fact that, I mean, we have a 14-day turnaround time instead of a 7-day turnaround time. It seems like you should be able to formulate your opinion on a normal medical service short of a surgery as quickly as you could decide on a more serious matter like surgery. So it seems like that could be aligned. But a really big concern is that, the rule is triggered by the insurer's receipt, not by the provider sending it. So if you can't prove that the insurer received it, this process doesn't even get triggered. It doesn't get started. The other thing is, which was really surprising to us, is that the worker is actually given a deadline for filing on a de facto denial if the insurer ignores the request. The worker is supposed to know the timeline and supposed to know that a deadline is running on them rather than the provider to request a hearing or request administrative review. I'm really just dumbfounded that we would do that and put a gotcha for the worker and the provider in there for the insurer who's not following the law. And they don't have the downside of not being able to dispute reasonable necessity. So it's just the worker has to know, has to force the process, has to process the claim, and then can be just out of luck if they don't know the process. I don't think that that's what the committee intended. I don't think that's what the providers were asking for. I think that there needs to be, some language discussing what constitutes sending or receipt or when something is deemed received, so that we know and the providers know and the workers know what actually triggers the process, what they should be looking for and submitting to the division if they want to have some review. In short, we would like to see these rules considered a little bit more. We had an advisory committee meeting and we had some discussion of what they might look like. And then we get proposed rules and we have major concerns about those. And then we have notice and comment. Of course, we submitted our comments. Going from past experience, usually the proposed rules look a lot like the final rules. I've rarely seen major changes made in response to stakeholder input when we have proposed rules, formal notice and comment, and then final rules. We really don't want to have this just be a step-by-step, let's talk about it again. We can suss out how these work and then have another conversation. We've been having these conversations for 10 years and the crisis has deepened in that time. And we now have a chance to do something really bold to address that. And unless these rules are changed significantly in the middle of the process, we're just going to be going on and on with this. And now doctors have to know what kinds of things they can actually use this request for. There's a list of 4 or 5 different things. It's just, this is not going to help the problem. So we would like to see these rules reconsidered. We'd like to see more stakeholder input from the medical providers, perhaps from the members of the subcommittee. We've talked about having an ongoing discussion surrounding the compensation piece. We could kind of put that on the fast track and have the discussion about these rules at the same time and maybe get the subcommittee's input a little bit more. I know we're going to have ongoing subcommittee type meetings to address this crisis, and we'd really like to have a little bit more discussion and input on these rules.
Thank you. And I'd just like to add to what Keith has said, this MLAC members, the subcommittee for access to medical services, all the stakeholders worked really hard and had really deep, long discussions about what the problem was, identifying a problem list and some solutions. And we very much appreciate that that was an organic process where everyone got a say. And as Keith said, the division has put forth some rules that we feel do not reflect all that hard work of the subcommittee, and that will not do what the subcommittee is trying to do by fixing some of these problems with getting medical services approved and pushed forward. There's a lot of people who request medical services other than the attending physician. The biggest one being rehab facilities or PT clinics or functional capacity evaluation clinics. Those people need to have some reassurance that there's a process that notices deemed received if they fax it and have a confirmation, and then there's a short period of time. And then if the insurer does not respond, the worker, when they eventually find this out, has the chance to dispute it. Nothing in the rule as it's written further incentivizes the insurer to document that it gets to the response and respond within a specific time. Instead, what it does is it basically gives the insurer 60 days to ignore and hide from a request, and then suddenly, oh, the workers lost their chance. And then, oh, look, I had the request 61 days ago and you're out of luck now, worker. Why are we putting the onus on the worker? Many of them unrepresented who don't even understand what the division is, let alone how to make a request. And the worker oftentimes doesn't know when the doctor sent the request. They get an appointment, doctor says, oh, I'm gonna send a request for surgery. It's 30 days later, worker has another appointment. Oh, I haven't heard back, says the doctor. Another appointment, I haven't heard back. What is the worker supposed to do? They don't know what they're supposed to do. And so putting the onus on them, rather than the whole point of our discussions, which was insurers get too much information. They get it from all different sources. They're not, for whatever reason, being able to respond in time. We need to hold them to those response times, and we need to make it simpler for them so they're not getting phone calls and emails and faxes and letters and trying to respond to everything. We understand it's a busy practice. Nothing about this rule holds insurers to their processing requirements, and nothing about it helps them with those processing requirements. Instead, it just hurts the worker. For example, I took over representation of a worker last year, and the insurer hadn't even accepted the claim. They had done nothing. So we had to file a request for hearing on that. We finally got the claim accepted. That was in July. And then the doctor's calling me, the specialist, not the attending physician, the specialist, saying, we've been requesting surgery since January. We have sent request after request every month, and we've never gotten a response. We've called, we've emailed, we've faxed. And I talked to the attorney who's representing the insurer, and he says, oh, my client says it doesn't have the request. Can you get it for us? Can you send it to us? In the new rule, we would be too late to even dispute that issue, even when the doctor provided us with fax confirmation after fax confirmation. That worker got her surgery 2 months ago. That is a broken system. This is a worker who has an accepted claim, who the doctor tried for a year requesting surgery, and there wasn't anything we could do about it. We kept calling and asking, but we didn't. What could we have done? We could have gone to the division and said, look, they haven't responded. Look, the doctor says they sent it. And we know the division's timelines are long to get back to us. So what we'd really like to see in a rule is something that brings it back together, like brings the parties together with strict deadlines so that they're having a conversation. We don't want to push this to litigation. We want there to be clear guidelines on the insurer receiving information, short time for them to respond, and then if there needs to be a dispute, we get the dispute filed right away. Oftentimes these elective surgery things don't result in disputes. My worker didn't result in a dispute because we worked it out with the insurer. But it took a year, and it shouldn't have to take that long when that goes against the purposes of the workers' compensation statute. So this rule does not help in the way it's meant to. It doesn't help all the stakeholders like it's meant to, and it hurts the workers more than it should. We really think it needs more discussion before it's pushed to final rule, because what happens is once we get it to final rule, then we're not going to look at it again for multiple years. And then we're going to keep having these gaps where doctors like Dr. Bowman have to basically trick insurers into getting post-surgical PT.
His words.
Yeah, when he said that, and we're talking about accepted claims, it broke my heart because I see it every day, and I see workers get adhesive capsulitis in their shoulders every day, and workers not being able to go back to work because of the delays in treatment. This rule doesn't fix it. Let's work on something to fix it. That's our position. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, both of you, for your comments. I understood that the division may have some additional information to share on this, and I'll.
Yes, Co-Chair.
Sure. Yeah. So yes, thank you, Co-Chair Priest. Matt West, Administrator of the Workers' Compensation Division. Appreciate Keith and Giovanna bringing this forward, and their comments during the public hearing and also the written comments. Just because of where we are in the rulemaking process, I don't have a lot, but I can say that we are committed to reviewing the information sent, the testimony, and also, not just from OTLA, but also others have, thoughts and feelings on the rule and whether or not we're hitting the mark. So we're in the process of kind of digesting all that, going through that feedback, and looking at, are there tweaks we need to make to the rule? Do we need to pull the rule completely for further discussion? So all of that is currently under consideration at the division.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you very much for that. Emily Cronin has her hand raised. So,
I do. Thank you, Coach and Priest. Thank you, Keith and Giovanna, for that comment. I do have a quick follow-up. As one of the co-chairs from the subcommittee, who spent a lot of time over the summer talking about this as well, I would agree, from my recollection, the intent of the recommendation that you guys are referencing was to create a path forward for the injured workers that are held up, especially by insurer delays, and to create some better shared accountability. In reviewing this in your comments, I don't see how the provider and the service limitations or appeal deadline serves the purpose that we had intended. And I honestly don't recall that we considered a deadline at all when making this recommendation. Is there anyone who can explain why those components were now included in the rule, or where that came from? Help me, little volunteer out.
I'm not the person to do that. I mean, I was involved in discussions, but we can certainly follow up with how we landed on the proposed language and where we're headed. I do want to reiterate that's proposed language. So it's not final by any means, but we can follow up with you, Emily, on kind of answering those questions.
Thank you.
thank you. Thank you for that comment and discussion. All right, any other public comment from anyone else? All right, well, hearing none, we'll move forward to department updates. The first item under department updates is the Workers' Compensation Board case law updates, and I have listed here Kathy Ostrand will be giving that for us today.
Thank you, Co-Chair. Good morning. Lauren Eldridge was actually going to provide the case law update this morning. She is unable to be here, but she did ask me to come on to let the committee know that she would be providing that at next month's meeting. So I apologize, don't have anything for you today.
Oh, okay. All right, well, thanks for delivering the message. I hope you have a good day. All right, so we'll wait for next time for that as well. The next item on the agenda is the Workers' Compensation Division updates, and Terry Watson is listed there.
Yes, Matt and I are going to split this. I'm just going to give you a quick update on the legislative process. Senate Bill 1519, that's the temporary total disability bill, has passed both chambers and is headed to the governor's office for signature, governor's desk for signature. And that bill goes into effect on 1/1/27. Also, the House Bill 4027, the Bully Expense Fund bill, has passed both chambers and is headed to the governor's desk for signature. And that bill goes into effect 91 days after sine die. House Bill 4040 is on its last chamber. It is in the Senate today, and for its third reading. That is the healthcare omnibus bill with the nurse practitioners and physicians, assistants or associates? Associates. And I presume it will pass today. I don't know a crystal ball. And that has an E clause. So that means it will go into effect as soon as it's signed, which requires a lot of work for WCD policy analyst. So that is an update on the bills. And I'm going to hand it over to Matt.
Yeah, and I was just going to give, thanks, Terry, a quick rulemaking update. So I just mentioned, as I mentioned, the Division 9, 10, 15, we're currently evaluating feedback from all of the stakeholders related to the proposed rules. And we're working on our response and tweaks in response to that feedback. And then related to House Bill 4040, as Terry said, because of that clause that makes the bill effective upon signing, there are a bunch of rules that we would need to update because we're changing attending physician authority for nurse practitioners and physician associates. So just letting MLAC and interested stakeholders aware of kind of what that process looks like. It's going to be kind of confusing. So what we have to do is we will immediately issue temporary rules in Division 9, 10, 15, 30, 35, and 60, updating those changes. Once we introduce temporary rules, then we have, it starts a 180-day clock that we have to then file permanent rules. So that means in the next 180 days, we will do a stakeholder advisory committee related to those rules. So that'll be coming up in the next 6 months, and then we would file permanent rules. So there's going to be kind of this with the 9 cents and 15 specifically, it's gonna be kind of weird because we're gonna issue temporary rules as soon as the bill is signed. April 1st, we'll have permanent rules related to the changes that are currently up for discussion, and then we'll finish we'll have another advisory committee and finish making those temporary rules permanent. So it'll a lot of moving parts, which is why typically we like when there's a deadline or a more of a runway to implement legislation, but it's out of our control. Happy to answer any questions related to that, or as we go through the process, what that means. But that's why you'll see notice on temp rules and then permanent, and then rulemaking to make the temp rules permanent. So clear as mud, I'm sure. But we'll communicate out as much as possible.
Thank you for those updates. There was an offer to answer any questions. Are there any from the committee? Scott Strickland.
So we had summer of subcommittee. Are we gonna get a catchy phrase for the fall of rulemaking?
Yeah, we have
Maybe
we'll come up with
workshop that a
something.
little bit.
Sounds like a good idea. I don't know, maybe we'll have to think of.
Yeah.
All right, and I just want to say thank you, Terry, for giving us an update on the status of bills that we make recommendations on. It's always nice to know what happens after it leaves our committee. All right. Anything else to bring forward for that? All right. Hearing none, it's time to move on to our next agenda item, which is the 2026 work plan to review and update. And I was going to ask Terry if you didn't mind sharing the work plan, just on the screen so we could all look at it while we do our discussion, and then we could just sort of review it. If you can, I think I can't see it if you just hold it up like that though, but
I was showing it to Baba, so she knew. That was funny.
all right, there you go. That looks pretty good.
So I want to explain what I've done. The co-chairs and I had a conversation last week about short-term goals and long-term goals, and I wanted to make sure as we work through this, because we do have all the work we did last year, which was a ton of work. And I wanted to make sure it's reflected and as we move forward. So what you have here is the short-term goals for this year. That's what we're looking at in front of us. And I've highlighted a couple of the changes. We've added the Work Comp Ed Conference, May 7th. And then the mid-September Healthcare Summit, we thought we might be able to do it a little earlier. And I have a couple ideas about that, but I just want to share what you have in front of you right now. And then if you can you scroll down, Baba? You'll see that this is the long-term goals. This is 2025 to 2027. And the topic or the goal comes from our topics list that we started I think in Teresa's time when she was the MLAC administrator. So I wanted to make sure that I kept those goals consistent. And then we have the list of topics as well to make sure I'm not missing anything. So they should align. I haven't put the task in there yet, but I wanted to make sure that everything makes sense and that as you review it, it is what it is that we want to do. And then just to wrap things up with a nice little bow, at the end of 2027, we will review each one of the short-term goals for each year, 2025, 2026, and 2027. And we will get together at the end of the year and write a new one for 2027 through 2029 is my intent. So,
Thank you for.
Yeah, what are your thoughts?
So I think we should just go ahead and start with that first document that you showed on the screen, which is the plan for this year, and just kind of go through that. I noticed there were some items highlighted. Yeah, that one right there. So we are right now on our work plan in March, And so the 2026 legislative session, we are wrapping up with that. And I think we can check that off, right?
Yes, we
We're
can.
done. Yay. All right. So we'll start with a celebration that we finished our first item on the work plan.
Snaps, however you do it.
And then the next item is Q2, and that's coming up. So we're going to have an offsite meeting, which is the ED conference. And what does ED stand for again? It's not
Education.
Education conference. All right. And that's in Wilsonville. And I know that's on our agenda for later, and some are signed up for that. And then we have we're going to continue the occupational safety and health, or let's see, so it's the OSHA conference, and it's in Pendleton this year, continuing that work, which was successful last time. And that's on the schedule for June 16th. And let's see, I remember us talking about this, a regulatory tour, April and August MLAC meetings. So, and then the goal is to increase knowledge and understanding of the roles and responsibilities of the regulatory agencies that support and interact with the workers' compensation system. Correct me if I'm wrong, but is that the rulemaking? Is that sort of kind of fitting with that? Or is it the regulatory bodies that are doing this rulemaking? Or am I mixing that up?
I think it's more about what it is and how they interact with the workers' compensation division in the rules that they play. So like with OSHA, how they regulate the different agencies that provide if it's a safety, if they have lower incident rates, then they would have lower insurance rates. Is that correct? Or am I simplifying it way too much?
Yeah, I think the intent is, OSHA and Department of Financial Regulation both have a nexus into the workers' compensation system. So kind of how the work that OSHA does impacts workers' compensation. And then also like the Department of Financial Regulation. So the WCD, we regulate the workers' comp industry, but DFR regulates insurance companies, including workers' compensation insurance companies. And they they're the body that sets the pure premium, so there's this nexus to workers' comp, and I think it's just to kind of educate additional parts of the system that are outside of WCD.
Okay, sounds good. Scott, did you have a comment or a question?
Yeah, I think that was kind of the last in the chain of when we had the like the injured worker panel and the employer panel and other stuff, kind of talking about the perspectives and the lenses that the people bring when and organizations and agencies and stuff bring. I think this was sort of the other one of like the regulatory lens, and as Administrator West mentioned, kind of introducing some of the players so it's not, amorphous, like DCBS does all of this stuff, but actually kind of identifying, DFR does this, WCD does this, OSHA does this, and sort of where there are opportunities for stakeholders to engage and understand issues and some of the perspectives and understanding of like the great work that the agency does, and presenting that to everyone as I think kind of a more holistic perspective of all of the different stakeholders and groups that are engaged and involved in the work comp process in Oregon. As part education, obviously for us, but also for stakeholders, and to kind of have something a little accessible if folks want to understand the lenses that we bring and to the work that we do. Was my understanding of where that came from and what the intent was.
Okay, thank you. That makes sense. So we're kind of closing the loop. This is maybe the last section then for when we started talking about introducing concept. Well, so it sounds like there's some great plans in place. Is there anybody have any concerns? It's a great plan. It's all laid out. Anybody have any comments, or like they've decided to change gears now? Sarah, are you going to throw a wrench in this, or?
No, not at all. I didn't know if you're looking for comment in just this section or across the whole plan.
It could be whatever you want to say, but it was really about the section. I was going to.
Okay, then I'm going to hold my comment to a different section. I just didn't want to lose the opportunity. Thank you.
Okay, you have an opportunity. You'll have it later. All right, so we have, so on our next agenda, we have April 2nd, we'll hear from OSHA. That sounds like a good thing. And it'll kind of, I probably would ask them, so you could, Terry, maybe let them know for the OSHA conference in June, maybe some feedback from them of what they think we could bring to make that session even a little better, when we're in person with them.
Okay.
All right, so that sounds like a good plan. So we'll move on to quarter 3. This is the fall of rulemaking, but I don't see rulemaking on our work plan here. So that'll be my first question. But instead, it's the healthcare summit, which we spent a lot of time talking about when we did our last work plan review it was in December, I think.
Yes.
And so here's what we agreed upon. The goal was to continue facilitating and contributing to the broader discussion led by the Access to Care Subcommittee, focusing on identifying barriers and developing strategies to improve access to care within the system. I guess the rulemaking fits with that because that was what we just talked about was, access to care. Let's see. So mid-September, there's a healthcare summit, and that was something where we were going to join in with somebody else. Is that been scheduled?
Well, that's what I have for you all to discuss. I was hoping that I could talk with Chair Nose and Chair Patterson and see if we could bring it out to a bigger discussion, because I feel like work comp is a piece of healthcare, but I don't know that we are the entire piece of healthcare. And there's so many healthcare different forums right now, the Oregon Healthcare Forum, there's all these different pieces. So I'm trying to figure out the best way to move forward with that now that session is winding down.
So that sounds like a good question. You're seeking feedback on what would be the best forum. I personally don't have expertise in the forum. It sounds like you're asking the right people. Does anybody on the committee have any ideas they want to share? Emily.
Thank you, Co-Chair Priest. I just want to kind of comment that when we had talked about this in December, we did have a discussion around ensuring that we're not sort of broadening the scope such that nothing can actually really get done or solved, right? We know that healthcare at every access point has significant challenges, and many are tied to levers that are sort of outside our control. And while I do want perspectives and feedback from everybody who has an interested component to this, I want to see how we can fix or what we can do to fix this, which is kind of where we're charged. So I just want to sort of highlight the fact that if we go too far broad, then we're going to lose the effectiveness I think that we might be able to have in solving some of the smaller issues that can really make a huge impact to injured workers. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Did you have any particular topics of that, more specific subject matter that we should focus on? Maybe something from your subcommittee that.
I mean, we had some recommendations initially, and then we had some larger conversations around provider access, the vacancy crisis in certain disciplines, what transportation looks like. I mean, there's a lot there where specifically this population of patients or injured workers are facing unique challenges that we can try and work on uniquely. Like there's a provider shortage across the entire state, but it's for different reasons. And so we're not going to necessarily be able to solve the larger provider problem with just simple solutions, but we may be able to solve some of the problems for the lack of providers or lack of resources here for our injured workers in this space. I know that it probably didn't fully answer you, but we can go back to some of the top problems that we heard during those subcommittee meetings. They didn't obviously make it to the full set of recommendations because we had some larger things we needed to discuss, but we can use that as a really rudimentary framework to try and build up the summit for the fall, is my hope.
That sounds good. I can't recall, did we keep the subcommittee on access to care intact to kind of continue the work, or did we retire it?
You mean the Mighty Two?
The Mighty Two.
The
Yeah, I
Mighty
do.
Two.
Yeah.
That's a Terry question, actually. I mean, I was part of it, but like I think we had sort of ended as it related to the initial charge of reviewing the bill and hearing and doing sort of some listening sessions. And then it was going to sort of like a phoenix rise from the ashes as a new thing with more parties involved, is the way that I understood it. Is that how you remember it as well, Kim?
Sorry, thank you. I need to get myself off audio. Yeah, and I guess I would even go a little bit farther back to the purpose of our committee or subcommittee, was kind of stemmed from the original SAFE proposal to become like a managed care organization. And when that didn't really formulate, it was like, well, we still have this issue. We'd like to discuss it. So I kind of felt like it was more that we were facilitating this discussion that stemmed from, the safe proposed bill of looking at being a managed care to try to address some of these issues with injured workers trying to access care. So I think that we served that purpose. We brought all these stakeholders together. We identified some things, but I think, I don't know really how much that we need to do to go to push this further. We addressed this, but and we that was where I'm not really clear. It's like, do we really have that ability now to take this this huge problem that's really not just workers' comp insurance, healthcare in general. So I think that's where we kind of were left with Terry to kind of explore that is there some other bigger committee or forum that can, kind of look at some of these issues.
So co-chair, I hear two things. I hear the access to care committee and I hear the healthcare summit. Is that what you're hearing as well? Is that what
Well, I'm
everybody is?
hearing, yeah, I'm hearing that there's a healthcare summit, but it's not really clear like what our role would be in it. And so the access to care committee was I don't know, the inspiration to have this at all. And so kind of figuring out, just going back and saying, do we need to spend a little more time to figure out what our role is in a healthcare summit? And who exactly would do that? That's really what I'm pulling from this discussion. And I don't know. I think you have a good strategy, Terry, just me personally, of piggybacking on something larger from the representatives that are leading this broader healthcare and just letting us be there. And then maybe once we have a seat at the table that we could spend some time about who would be the best representative and what we would offer. I don't know, that's my takeaway. Sarah, I hope you have something better that you could come up with.
I heard, thank you, Co-Chair Priest. I heard from Emily saying that, and I agree that, we can only work on what we can work on at workers' comp, and broadening it too far and going to a whole healthcare summit might not be our best venue or use of our workers' comp system time. But maybe there's a piece of that summit that, Terry, you could parse out the right people to get in the right room with us at that table, and focus on that workers' comp piece. So we're not overextending our scope. I don't know if that makes sense or that's reasonable or thoughtful, or what Emily thinks of that.
Emily, you raised your hand, then you put it back. Oh, there you go.
I did. I raised it, then I put it back down. I'm raising it again to directly answer. I think I'm trying to recollect the conversation that we had back in December in its totality, but essentially one of the limitations that I brought to everyone's attention from those subcommittee meetings was there was a limited number of stakeholders, and the majority of those stakeholders were already deeply engaged in this work. And some of the burdens we heard around access, right, is really related to the number of providers of different disciplines that are available to injured workers to kind of improve their overall like continuum of care. So in that regard, we are missing like a huge number of hospital systems or the hospital association because a lot of, especially these mid-level providers and some of the specialty providers are sort of participating as directed by their larger healthcare system. And so we can't have those conversations and learn from them and figure out how to work together if they're not here to have those conversations. So the broadening, I think really the intention was to try and get more stakeholders who have a direct impact on how injured workers are treated at a table somewhere. I think in answer, so I agree. I don't want to try and solve all of, I mean, I'd love to solve all of the healthcare problems around how people get access to care at any point in time. But the access to care subcommittee kind of wasn't large enough as it related to the people who can make some of these bigger decisions on how to provide better care. But I don't want it to be so big that we're looking at the state of Oregon and every touch point in healthcare as well. So somewhere in between is what we were, I think, we're hoping for the summit.
And Emily, I guess that was my point by just sitting down and having a conversation with the chairs of the healthcare committee, is explaining that we just wanted that work comp piece. But I see them testifying in their committees, those, Peace Health, I see Legacy, I see those, OHSU, they're all there. But, like you said, they're missing from the table that we need for that work comp piece. So
Yeah.
that's
yeah,
why
I
was
would
hoping.
agree.
Yeah.
That I interact with them quite regularly as we move forward to try and come to collective solutions for problems that face a majority of healthcare.
Yeah.
I would like to hear from them and try and build solutions that are inclusive of some of the largest employers in the state. And healthcare providers in the state. They're both the largest employers and the largest healthcare providers, and they're just missing. So however we need to do that and call it whatever we want, that was the hope in trying to get to solutions that are actionable to broaden how injured workers are being able to be treated in this state.
So maybe we should call it just I don't know, seeking information meeting and finding out where we can go from there. And maybe, let's see, this is that's a third quarter. Maybe we try to do that during the second quarter and see where we get and report back.
That sounds like a good plan to me. I think we're all in agreement about kind of what needs to be done. We just don't know what exactly it is. So we haven't really figured out what exactly that is. What exactly does it mean? I think the concept and the philosophy I hear agreement around. And maybe rather than a healthcare summit, that makes it sound more like we're giving a healthcare summit. What I'm hearing more is participating in somebody else's healthcare summit to offer a work comp perspective, or, like join into something else. I don't know. Kim.
Yeah, thank you, Patrick. I think you articulated that very well. I think that really helps kind of refocus or redirects really what, I think we were trying to do.
Good. All right. So, over the spring, we'll try to figure out what that one thing is. And I don't know, Emily, I really look to you. I mean, you have such great passion for this, and it's your area. So I don't have any bias toward anything. I mean, I heard some passionate arguments about people not getting the care that they may need, and so there may be some opportunities there and from your work. So maybe bring that back to a future meeting. Terry, when do we look at this work plan again? Do we do so before the fall? Do we look at this work plan quarterly, I think?
Yeah, we have our offsite meetings in May and June. We don't meet in July. We'll probably take a look at it again in August. And then let's see. We'll probably, in August, take a look and see how things are going. And then probably again in October, and then the 2027 legislative information will start slowly trickling in.
Yeah. Okay, I see a couple of hands raised. Scott, I'll let you go first. You're first on my screen.
Thank you. Yes, in looking at the recommendations, I know that a lot of this is more like trying to drive stakeholder engagement in the process because that was kind of, I think, part of the incentive or part of the thought behind the summit idea is to have a little more of a kind of stakeholder driven space, given what Emily and Kim have identified of, the layered or sort of, where the Venn diagram of access to care issues, and work comp is a piece of that within kind of a bigger sphere of healthcare issues. And obviously, in my opinion, until we can make like the rest of the world and go to single payer and resolve all these issues across the board, but that is obviously outside the scope of this committee as well. But I don't know if we would want to re-envision how we refer to it as like an access to care stakeholder summit or something like that, to kind of incentivize the idea that it's more stakeholder driven and more, seeking to have folks with like kind of different perspectives and draw in maybe some organizations that didn't have an opportunity or didn't participate in the process of the subcommittee. I don't know if that's kind of keeping with the idea there, but to have it be a little more stakeholder driven might be nice, and that I think would avoid, I know Sarah brought up some of the concerns of, and I think Emily as well, of keeping us within the work comp scope, and sort of our scope and our ability. That if other stakeholders are coming in and kind of bringing creative solutions and outside the box thinking based on the variety of ways that they interact and intersect with each other, that might be a little more productive and a little more kind of trying to get at what my understanding of the sort of recommendation of the subcommittee was. Again, not trying to override, we have the two experts, the super two or whatever it was that Emily referred to Emily and Kim as. I don't know if that's helpful, but a potential to kind of like put it back more on the stakeholders and their opportunity to engage on that, so that we can sort of prop that up. And obviously there'll be things outside of work comp that are discussed there, but it's a little more stakeholder driven potentially.
Thank you, Scott. Just to kind of clarify, what I'm hearing from what you said was a new idea, something different, where it would actually be something we put together for our stakeholders to come together and give us more information that would be only on work comp. But we don't know exactly who those stakeholders are or what exactly they would bring. We just ask them, ask people that we work with a lot, or did I?
Not necessarily. So it's kind of more keeping in line. I know that Terry mentioned that Rep Nose and some others were sort of interested in engaging with this, and that there's a lot of discussion of more general healthcare issues. And it's really hard to differentiate where there's just it's a provider crisis independent of work comp, right? Versus it's a provider crisis within work comp relating to access to an MCO or something like that. That gets difficult and complicated, and a lot of times it's maybe both or neither in a sense. So I wouldn't say that we would host that uniquely just to us, just within work comp. But if we meaning WCD and MLAC, sort of frame that as we're interested in a stakeholder summit that would touch on some work comp issues, and then anyone else that's interested in kind of supporting that, and if there's other broader issues that are discussed, great, we're happy to have that. We're happy to have other agencies and other things sort of bring their expertise, but have it be stakeholder driven predominantly. I think that if we're kind of involved in providing a portion of that platform for a broader stakeholder meeting, I think was kind of what I was thinking. I don't know if that clarifies.
It makes more sense. It sounds like that's some more input for Terry on what the place where we would participate, like what kind of thing you envision it being. So, all right, that makes sense to me. All right, Emily, did you come up with some topics? Did you think?
No, I mean, we can, I was going to make two suggestions. One
Yeah.
that maybe a few of us or Terry and I sort of meet and like look at what the logistics would be, and then bring that back to the larger committee to kind of like compile some of the questions we still have. And Terry, I don't disagree with the desire to engage some of our legislators who might help support getting the people we are looking to get at the table to the table to have these discussions and questions. And I think that that was where a lot of this was originally spurred from, is that there was a very, like, people were missing that we needed. Representatives, organizations were missing, spokes were missing, and we need them at the table to have these discussions and try and create solutions. So however we need to do that. I'm happy to take more time to pull together some of the problem lists that we heard that didn't obviously make it to the final recommendations, but some of the things that we compiled in our discussions, and bring that to the larger MLAC committee to see how that feels, if I can get some time on the agenda, the next meeting, for example. And then Terry, you and I can chat before that, if that works for everyone, or if that seems like the next logical step. Sarah.
That sounds good to me. I guess, Sarah, if you're going to build on it, I'll turn it over to you. If not, I'd be curious if Terry agrees, since it's something she would be doing. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I can do that.
I was just,
Absolutely.
sorry, didn't mean to cut Terry off. I just want to echo, I think that would be good to revisit April. I'd hate to see lost momentum on something like this with all the hard work that was done over last summer. I think this is a really important topic. And to wait until August to revisit it just doesn't seem to do justice to the work that's already been done. So that's all I'd like to add.
Yeah, that's a good comment. I agree with you, Sarah. And we have the other Sarah to
Thank you,
provide some
Co-Chair
comment.
Priest. Emily, appreciate your efforts and your willingness to meet with Terry. I just wonder if, I don't want to put this on Kim's plate as well, but if she should be invited to continue that continuity.
I would invite Kim, but I can't speak for her. As much as I'd like to, I can't. Kim, do you want to participate in that? And if not, does someone else on the management side want to lend a voice to keep it balanced?
There is somebody else on the management side that would like to take this on. That I'd be happy to step aside, but if not, I will continue on.
Thank you, Kim, for agreeing to do that. I see Emily's hand raised. Is there anybody on the management side? I don't see any hands raised. We're not. I'm happy for you to do it, since I know you did so much work. I feel like I'd be starting from, a catch-up stage. I think building on what was done sounds great. All right, Emily, did you have?
I just kind of want to clarify what the next step, what I had intended for that was. Like, we have, Kim and I and Terry collectively have a list of concerns that were brought to us by stakeholders. I was thinking about just lending a hand to Terry to sort of compile that, to bring to the larger committee, that we could work together to discuss what of those questions or what of those concerns do we want to see in this summit, or what was formerly known as summit that will be called something else. I'm not looking to do any substantive work around the content. I just didn't want to make the ask of Terry to compile that and present it to us next without offering some assistance. That's all that was. So it really isn't about adding anything from my lens. It was just about making sure that that was an equitable share of work to bring to the committee to then review and decide how to move forward. Just to clarify, thanks.
Yeah, thank you for that clarification. That's what I heard. That's what I expect. So, yeah, and I think it'll be good to continue the discussion. Whenever we talk about it, we talk about it for a long time. So I think there's a lot of interest, but I don't hear a lot of like specifics, like what exactly is it? So I think coming up with that list sounds like a great next step for me personally. But all right, well, with that, it sounds like we are gonna keep it on our list for now, and then we're gonna talk about it more in April. Um, and then maybe I have a question for Scott. Scott, do you feel like we need to add something in the fall? You said this will be the fall of regulatory, and we did, it's nickname day. We didn't come up with one, but I don't see anything on our work plan related to that. Is there something that you see needing to be added?
My suggestion would be late summer summit. or late summer summit season or something like that.
Okay, summit season. Okay, there we go.
No, it was a joke about the volume of rulemaking that'll need to occur.
Okay.
I don't know that we'd necessarily need that to add that to the work plan. I know WCD does a great job of keeping us updated on sort of how all of that plays out.
Yeah, just those department updates. Yeah, I think, we haven't really opined on rules. Like we have on, like we've given our recommendations about bills, but not necessarily rules themselves. That was something kind of a little new to me. And I don't know, maybe one question for Terry and or Matt. What is MLAC's role as it relates to rules? Do we have any sort of I don't know,
Yeah,
responsibility?
So I would say not officially. I hope you all get invites to all the rulemaking advisory committee meetings and would always appreciate, if it's a rulemaking that you want to weigh in on, that you participate in that advisory group and share your input. But there's not an official, we agree with this rule versus we like similar to like legislation, like we support this bill or don't support a bill or neutral on a bill. It's not part of the rulemaking process, but you are certainly an important stakeholder that we would love to have participate in the advisory committee meetings.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that clarification. So we'll leave it. I think we have enough on our plate with this for our work plan. I'll leave it at that. And then,
Co-chair,
yes,
would it be okay if we just left it the way it was? Because the healthcare summit meeting, whatever we decide to call it, it may be late fall, it may be September, October. Anyway, can we just leave it like it is? Because we don't
yeah, I
know how
believe
it's gonna.
so.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
That was my expectation, to leave it as it is. But that
Okay.
we're just going to clarify it a little bit more in the April meeting. But I think
Yes.
in terms of documentation, what's written here is still right. And then
Okay.
moving on to the fourth quarter, that one's a little more undefined. There's some kind of offsite meeting, healthcare summit in rural areas, and it may be pushed to 2027 based on our workload. I don't know. It, You had talked, Terry, about maybe doing something that we have a planning day, like spend more time on the work plan. I I don't know.
Yeah, that's
Something you
towards
wanna-
the end of 2027. This actually came from Stacy. She had talked about doing having different members go to different meetings and talk about MLAC and healthcare issues. And so and Stacy's not here today. So again, it goes to increasing communication and outreach about what MLAC does and the work comp process. So when I say push it to 2027, we have such a busy, long session. So, again, towards the end of the short-term work plan,
Okay.
that might all get squishy. So,
Okay. I know Sarah's been waiting for her time to bring up, I think, a different topic, so I'll let her go
Yeah,
ahead.
this was the one I was going to originally comment on. I know October has typically been our offsite meeting, but we have 2 offsite meetings
yes.
in quarter 2. And so it seems like we're covering it this year, just in a different time frame based upon when the meetings actually are occurring. So I don't personally believe we need an additional offsite meeting in this October. And gearing up for a long session, that might simply be what our quarter 4 is, in my opinion.
Okay.
It's a very good point. I know this is a volunteer thing. I know Emily mentioned it. So having 3 things where I'm going somewhere else does seem like a lot. So I'm okay with maybe changing that. But anybody else? Sarah?
Sorry, one more comment. And the healthcare summit, I know, Terry, you haven't mentioned there, but might be pushed to there. So being squishy I would put the healthcare summit in both quarters and then gear up towards the legislative session, the long session in Q4 as well. And then kind of allow that flexibility there, is my opinion.
Sarah, I just wanted to let you know, open-ended time loss, it is here. I don't know if you saw it in the list of topics, but in the last minutes, we have it. We heard what you said and it is on the list of topics. So I hope that you had a chance to review that. I just wanted to make that
I
comment.
didn't think otherwise, so thank you.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you. Any other comments on quarter 4? All right, no others. Terry, do you have information you need in order to edit this? Would you recommend just leaving it alone and then we just talk about it as we get closer to the time? Or maybe just take off the words offsite meeting?
I have enough to make the edits and I will bring back a different copy in April. And then also I'll have a chance to meet with Emily and Kim, and then we will be good to go. Okay?
Okay, good.
Yeah.
All right, so that's our
Thank you.
work plan for this year, and that's what our goal was just to look at the 2026 work plan. So I
Yes.
think we've done that.
Yes, we have. Thank
And
you.
we'll just, as next time we review it, if we have time, we'll go to the future things. All right. With that, unless there are anybody have any other burning comments that they want to make about the work plan? All right, seeing none, I'll move forward to upcoming meetings. And we've got our April 2nd meeting for MLAC, our regular monthly meeting. It is virtual. And we will have that. And then May 7th, we have the education conference, and there are some that are attending that. So, and then we do have a MLAC, I don't know, outreach. There's some sort of meeting while we're there, right? Is that
Yeah,
correct?
the MLAC meeting starts at 4:30 and concludes about 5:15. It'll be a shorter meeting. And then we have a social hour after that. I will be I have the flyers to take over to the legislators right now from that area and hand out for this MLAC meeting on May 7th.
Okay.
So we have that.
Could we bring to the April meeting some sort of like agenda or expectation for those that'll be there participating in the meeting, like what they should be prepared for? Are we supposed to say something like we did when we went to the OSHA conference?
Yeah, let me write that down so I don't forget. Yep. Yeah, I think you just had little, yep. I can do that.
Okay. All right. I know I'm going. Who else is going to this or planning to participate? Sarah and Scott and Emily? All right, good. It's a nice participation. That's great. All right, the next item on here is June 16th. That's the Blue Mountain Occupational Safety and Health Conference. That's the one, like the one that we attended in Bend, right? This is this year's version of it.
Yes.
It's in June in Pendleton. And I guess we'll do a similar sort of thing. That's the plan. Okay.
Yes.
And then we have no meeting in July. All right.
Yes.
Any other questions, comments, concerns about the upcoming agenda? All right, seeing none. That is the end of our agenda. Is there anything else to be brought forward at this time? I see Kim has her hand raised.
Yes, thank you, Co-Chair Priest. I just wanted we had time to reflect a little bit on Dr. Sabo's public comments. And I just wanted to say that, yes, I am a nurse practitioner, but that was not the role on our subcommittee. And so I don't want his public comments to look like somehow that there was a bias or that I was lobbying for, nurse practitioners. That was not really any part of, our, my participation on the ATC. I kind of looked at my role more as a facilitator to really look at the issues of worker compensation insurance as a whole, and what were some of the barriers, and to try to bring the stakeholders together. So I just wanted to make that comment now that I have more time to, reflect on what his, his presentation was this morning. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I appreciate your reflection on it and taking the time. All right. Anything else to be brought forward today? Since we are ending early, I know I don't have to do it, but I would seek a motion to adjourn since we're adjourning early. Is there someone willing to make that motion?
I will make that motion.
Thank you, Emily. Is there a second?
No second.
Thank you, Sarah. I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Are there any opposed? All right, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much, and we'll see you on April 2nd.
Thank you.
Bye.